Well, hello there, and thank you for stopping by our live hang tonight. This is your buddy Dave over at MarsX3D, and we have some fairly amazing things to look at tonight, including something I call what may be the smoking gun. It's one of the best anomalies I've seen in quite a while, and I've seen some real doozies. So you'll be looking at that just a little bit later. And of course, we want to welcome Alan aboard from Mars, the second Genesis. For those of you who are perhaps watching this in replay, you'll want to be sure to go over to Mars, the second Genesis, and check out Alan's channel. Not only is he presenting an entirely unique way of removing all the layers that NASA puts on their images, but he's also presenting some X3D as well. So I do encourage you to go give him a little bit of love. And Inhabit Mars just showed up. Hey, how you doing, my friend? We're doing great. It's a beautiful spring day here in the People's Republic of Mass. And in fact, this is the first day it's been up in the 70s for all winter long. So we'll certainly take it. I think that this weekend I'm going to crawl into the basement and dig out my kayak and start getting all my fishing gear ready to go. I see that Raymond Glassford is showing up. Hi, Raymond. Very nice of you to stop by for a little bit. And James is here, James Cregan. And I got past, hey, you got past the bouncer, huh? Good for you. And so we're going to try something just a little bit different. Not horribly different, but just a little bit different tonight. You see, I'm kind of starving for some more interaction with you guys. And since we're not on Zoom and we have a 45-second delay, and oh, Ramona, hi Ramona, welcome aboard. Since we have a 45-second delay, sometimes the chatting doesn't go as smoothly as we wish it would. But here's what I'm planning to do tonight. Instead of running through the sneak peeks at the new anomalies that will be going into the next episode. Thank you, James. Great to see you here as well, my friend. We're only going to go through them one time. We'll talk about them a little bit. We'll take our time with them. But we're only going to go through them one time. And then after that one time through, I'm going to open it up for Q&A. In other words, it's Ask Dave Anything. Now, and literally anything, as long as it's not too personal, but it doesn't have to be just Mars anomalies. It can be consciousness related. It can be day-to-day problems, whatever it is you might be dealing with and have a question about. If I can help out in some way, I certainly will. And more than likely, with the brain trust that we've put together here with all you great, proud weirdos out there, I have no doubt that amongst us all, we have a bunch of answers. And so let's see. We have at least 3 or 4 people on board. That's great. And you know, it's funny, guys and gal. Last week, I posted it on the community, on YouTube community. And I also posted it on Facebook, on the MarsX3D Facebook page. And we got no more viewers than normal. It seemed to have made absolutely no difference. And so this week, I only sent the announcement via email to one and all. I hope you got it. And I haven't done anything else. So we'll see how it... Oh, look, Renee is here. Good to see you, my friend. Staying up late over there in Deutschland. And glad to see all the usual suspects on board. So anyway, I'm kind of changing things up just a little bit in terms of the formatting of the images, and trying to open them up a little more, make them a little less cluttered, dial back the copyright logo so it's semi-transparent now. And I did experiment with the animated logo over the last 2 episodes, but golly, Ned, that takes a lot of time to do that in X3D for each slide. And being basically a retired, grumpy old man, I really don't want to spend that much time doing that. I'd rather be looking for new anomalies. Netherlands, forgive me, Renee. Forgive me. I said Deutschland, didn't I? I meant the Netherlands. And we always had such a good time over there when I was touring with the Black Dogs. We would tour all over. We go to Eindhoven and Delft and bunches of other places roundabout, Maastricht, and always had a wonderful time in the Netherlands. Lots of good food there. I didn't get used to the, we had a little time before a concert one night. And so the cornet player and I went out. Oh, thank you, Renee. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. The cornet player, Davy Jones, and I went out looking for a Mexican restaurant. I can't remember where we were. Maybe it was Eindhoven. And so we found a Mexican restaurant about a block off of the town square and went in. And it was funny because all of the things that normally you would expect to have beef used for, like tacos or nachos or enchiladas, they used pickled herring. And I know y'all over there like your pickled herring, but for an old Midwest corn cob like myself, that's an acquired taste. So we ordered some Mexican food and found out it was mostly pickled herring. And we felt kind of sorry for ourselves. We ate it anyway. And, and thank you. I'm glad I've been forgiven here. I know that things are a little bit tense over there with Comrade Putin doing the things he's doing, but it's hard for us to tell whom to believe. Now, I don't want to get into that here. We try not to steer into politics here, if at all avoidable. But I smell a rat in there, in the Ukraine. Something's not right. And so we'll see, won't we? Anyway, let's see. How far along are we? We're about 10 minutes. We'll give it another minute. We'll see if anybody else shows up. And then we'll start diving into the anomalies so far. And we're going to start tonight with a classic find by my friend Thomas Mikey Schroeder Jensen, a wonderful Danish anomalist who's married to, oh, look, an official Proud Weirdo First Class is here. We welcome Tony DeVerne. Welcome, Tony, from merry old England, and a genuine Proud Weirdo First Class. You see his badge there, everybody? A mark of distinction, let me tell you. But Thomas, or who I call him TJ, as many of you know, has made some astounding finds in years past. And so we're going to start out tonight by sharing one of those with you. So let me see. I'm going to go ahead and if you're ready with your exit. Oh, yeah. Ramona, I know you're here already, but I just always get such a kick when I see your name. I don't know why that is, but I do. Anyway, here is one from Curiosity 720 that TJ found years ago. And, you know, it's interesting, by the way, just a side note, that when I load these images into OBS, they desaturate and green shift. And I can't take the time to redo the color on every single slide. Otherwise, it'd take me 4 hours to prepare for a live hang. So, you know, when you look at the actual video, it'll be a lot more colorful. Anyway, this is one we call Wheels that TJ found several years ago. And take a look at this. Now it's blurry because it's a real crappy JPEG from NASA. But check this out. Are you seeing what I'm seeing in the middle there? A set of wheels with an axle, right? You all see it? I know I do. And yes, Renee, Thomas had gone to work for Billy Carson over at Forbidden Knowledge. And I think his channel is called Space TV. I have the link in my, the link will be in the video this week, but he has a channel up. And there's Jessica's husband. Hi, Jessica's husband. Welcome aboard, my friend. And we're starting out with Wheels that TJ found years ago. And really, folks, how much more clear can you get? How much more clear does it have to be? And what in the world? Woody Road in the shape of two wheels with a hub and an axle between them? That's really quite amazing. Get a little drink here to get the frog out of my throat. And before we leave this one, I wanted to be sure to point these out. You see on the left, that nice rectangular tab. And on the right, that nice square with the tube on the top. There is all kinds of stuff in this image. Unfortunately, you can also see there are a lot of JPEG artifacts in here. I smoothed them out as best as I could without getting rid of the overall clarity of the image. Okay, let's move ahead. And here's one that I call Slice with Holes. And it's down there on the right. And you can see this is a context view, right? So this is a pretty good sized chunk of rock. I'm thinking 1.5 feet, 2 feet across. And yeah, Renee, you're right. I think it's a chunk. Many of these places that we see on Mars are debris fields. They're junkyards. And as we zoom in on this, now you can see this isn't a world-shattering, non-fractal anomaly. In fact, it's what I call an oogie, but I can't remember what the letters stand for. Senior moment. But it's what I call a geologic artifact. This could be man-made, so to speak, but look at that clean, flat slice on the right side. That's really smooth, and it's got those nice rounded corners. Then you've got those holes drilled in it. So how does that come about? But I'm not calling this an artifact. I'm calling it a geologic oddity. How's that? Does that sound okay to you? I wish I could remember what I intended oogie to be. It was pretty good. See, I have to write things down anymore because I forget them. You know, my short-term memory is toast. I think it's my misspent youth being a hippie and all the things we did, you know. I burned up a lot of neurons and brain cells. That reminds me of my uncle. My uncle was one of the first computer experts with the NSA, National Security Agency, a very secret organization, intelligence organization. He was one of the first computer experts in the very earliest days of computers when control data was the big mover and shaker on the computer scene. But my uncle was a phenomenally intelligent person. And later on, after he retired, he discovered the art of winemaking. And he began making wine out of everything, including oak leaves. Anything organic, he'd make it into wine. And I visited him once. I was with Ringling Circus, and we were visiting in Washington, D.C., where he lived. We were playing there. And so I stopped by to see him, and he took me in his basement, and good grief, he must have had 100 gallons of wine lined up on the shelves. And he was quite the alcoholic at that point, although you would never know it. He was very high functioning. But he had drunk so much wine over the last 10 years or so that his IQ had come down to just that of an exceptionally smart individual instead of a raving genius. And I said, well, how long are you going to go? And he said, till I can't think anymore. You know, those people in the intelligence community, they see and they deal with a lot of things that I think would make our blood curdle. It's not a happy business. Okay, so let's move on. And as I mentioned a bit earlier, we're just going to go through these sneak peeks one time. You got to be here to see them. And we're going to try to start about 10 minutes in with the images. Let me look at these messages real quick. Ramona says, I have those all the time. I think we must use Mars as a dump yet. Yeah. I think actually it's just all the debris left over from the tsunamis and the nuclear blasts and the earthquakes, the global upheaval. So sometimes we run across debris fields that are quite extensive, and they're just packed with anomalous objects. And we're going to look at those, one of those in just a minute. Alan says, could you remind everyone I have started to add more content to my channel? Hey everyone, Alan has started to add more content to Mars the Second Genesis. Be sure to go over there and subscribe and give him a little love. Alan is doing some groundbreaking work over there. Ian is here. Another proud Weirdo First Class to join Tony DeVerne. Welcome aboard, Ian. We're glad to have our badge members on board. That makes my heart proud to see you. Anyway, let's go ahead and dive into this next one. This is one that Martine Graney found. And I want to remind you how blue that sky is and how bright that sun is. And look, we've got Granny in the house. Hi, Amanda. Welcome aboard. And, you look at that, it could be somewhere in Arizona, possibly. The sun is that bright and the sky is that blue. After all those years of NASA telling us, no, the sky is pukey reddish brown. It's not blue. And then all of a sudden, whoa, guess everyone, the sky is blue. Sorry about that. Anyway, so we're going to zoom in on that yellow target there in the center. And look at that. Isn't that nice? It almost looks like a dollar sign. That is such a clean S. That is really hard to believe that that is the result of natural processes. I mean, it's just so perfect. And then that block to the right of it is pretty interesting too. Who knows what all those doodads are on the shaded surface. But there is something I want you to notice before we leave this one. Did you notice this disc in the background divided into 3 perfectly equal parts? How about that? Now that's not natural. Sorry about that. That is not natural. And now we're, of course, in Curiosity 2633. And Jessica Roberts' husband. It's actually called Raelian scattering. The blue wavelengths are absorbed by the oxygen and nitrogen in the atmosphere, if I understand that correctly. I might have one of those gases wrong. And that's why our sky is blue, and that's why there is oxygen to be had in the Martian sky, complete with a rain cycle. So, the oceans are blue because of the color reflected from the sky. And it looks like a pin in it, doesn't it? Inhabit Mars. And talk about smoking gun. We're going to be running across this in just a little while. Hey, Glenn. Good to see you. Welcome aboard, my friend. Yeah, I remember when I was a kid, how excited we were to find out about the color changes that seemed seasonal on Mars, how the vegetation would encroach during the summer and then retreat in the winter, and the ice caps would grow. Do you notice they don't say anything about that anymore? But it was in all of my astronomy books when I was 6 and 7 years old. So anyway, we're going to stay right here in 2633. And I got intrigued by this mound because it reminded me of a termite mound. And whatever it happens to be, what is that round thing right at the top? What is up with that? Well, it kind of looks like a pipe, doesn't it? Surrounded by some kind of radial feature. So, if in fact it is an opening, is it possible that that's an underground dwelling of some kind and that's part of the aeration for it? Or is it inhabited by gigantic Martian termites? I just thought that was really interesting. I was like how the Aussies and the Brits say, "Good on you, mate." I like that phrase. It's a lot nicer than, "Hey bud, how you doing?" Know what I mean? Well, anyway, for some of those who are coming in just a little bit later, we're just going through the sneak peeks one time tonight, and then we're opening it up for Ask Dave Anything, a Q&A session, and it can be as wide-ranging as you want to go, within reason, of course. Doesn't have to be Mars. It can be other stuff as well. But we're about to dive in here to something wonderful that my friend Neil Spence did. He went back to the Viking lander. What was that, 1976? I mean, like 46 years ago? I'll have to check online and make sure I have that date right. But he went back and reprocessed all of the images as clearly as he could. And there's some amazing stuff in them. And what's also cool, and we'll start out by looking at some smaller stuff before we get to the heavy hitters. But take a look at this. Okay, this one is, if you can see it, inside that white box, there's a big old cylinder out there, about 2 or 3 feet long, maybe a foot across. And this is one of those debris fields. This image, and when you see the video, there's a clickable link, and you can go to the pan or the Giga Macro, and trust me, that thing is loaded with stuff. You can have a field day in there. Anyway, as we zoom in, you can see, and this is as close as we can get without going into a breakup. But you can clearly see that that's a cylinder. And indeed, many of the other things surrounding it are anomalous as well. Oh yes, and if everybody wouldn't mind, it'd be great if you leave a thumbs up for me tonight. I appreciate that. And I'd like to also suggest that if you have anyone who is really, really skeptical or unhappy about Mars anomalies of any kinds, share this channel with them just to aggravate them a little bit. Okay, let's move on to another one. Now this is clearly a worked block. It's a rectangular block, and it looks to me on the right side that it had cement mortar, some of which clung to the surface, the rest of which broke off. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but the non-fractal angles, that is an artifact. Inhabit Mars, you may be right. Each of these images is loaded with all kinds of stuff. Here's another one that I thought was really interesting. right in the center there. See that block that has a right angle square on it with a tab coming down, and then it's got 3 rivets across the top, and then it slants down the same slant as the one on the left. So I am saying this is an artifact. And if you look around this image, you will see others in there that are very, very strange. And yeah, Mr. Jessica Roberts, this is, of course, this is Viking. This is 48 years ago, and you'll notice that these images are just about as clear as Perseverance. I mean, come on. Why aren't the images we're getting back from Percy razor sharp, just like your cell phone and my cell phone takes? You know, instead of spending $2.8 million on a mass cam, a set of mass cams, how about just putting 2 iPhones up there that are hardened against radiation and temperature? They'd do a better job. Tie them into your data breakdown and download unit, and you got everything you need. Planetary Protector, welcome aboard. Anyway, look around, especially that one in the upper right. You can see more a square there and other goodies. But now, here's another one. This is one that Martine Graney jumped on, right in the center there. And those are the actual colors. It makes me think that it's a machine component with some brass, some levers or pull handles on them. But that is definitely an artifact. And of course you look to its back and you've got that perfect hemisphere and what appears to be a square edge running around in back of it. So, a very cool find, I think. So now we're still in Viking. This is still the Giga Macro done by Neil Spence, who did a marvelous job on it. And I want to point out to you again that, as I recall, in the original Viking images, this entire thing was that pukey red-brown dust cover that they put over every image. There was no sunlight like this. There was no blue sky. But suddenly it's okay to show the blue sky here almost 50 years later. So we're looking at that green target in the upper right. And you can see from here, you know, I get a lot of comments from people saying, well, Dave, why don't you put some measurements in there? What's wrong with you? You're trying to fool us. And of course, these are people that don't watch the videos and are just eating Cheetos in mommy's basement and looking at the flat images I put up on Facebook. But the reason I do the context image is that if you're standing where the Viking lander is, you get a pretty good idea about how far away that object is and how big it might be, because they do not include any metrics with the Mastcam images, and now they're starting to pull them off of the Navcam images. And that's a little frustrating, because we used to be able to locate an anomaly on the Navcam, and even though it was blurry and a real crappy picture, we could tell how far away it was and how big it was using the NASA metrics. But I think they got hip to us doing that. So they're not as cooperative as they once were. Anyway, let's zoom in on this one. Now that, to me, is awesome. That is crazy cool. That is an artifact. No doubt whatsoever in my mind. No kidding. Dick Tracy. That is an artifact. Just look at the markings on it. The squares, the triangles, the beadwork, the shapes, the rhomboid in front. And indeed, as you look around, you can see more there. And I wanted to point this out to you in case you didn't notice it. That is that nice square block with a perfect circle in the center with a knob in the middle of it. How nice is that? That is very cool. So anyway, now, as I've been promising, we have one that I call a smoking gun. There's a problem with it though, which I'll share with you in just a moment. But if you've got your X3D on, take a look at this. That is completely hair-raising, dazzling, awesome. So clearly a motor or machine of some kind, a big one. And all those things in the foreground. Those are artificial as well, but I'm hoping you notice the hoisting hooks on the top left and top right end. And what looks like an alternator on the left end. See the round housing? It almost looks like gearing and wheels, governor wheels on there as well. But now here is the problem. This comes from a guy who has a channel called Mr. Danielle. And here's what he does. He'll take a panorama. This one's from Percy. And he'll pan in on something like this. This one, he doesn't really pan in on it until 7 minutes and 52 seconds into the video. And he just pans all over the place real slow and doesn't show you anything. There's no analysis. There's no music, although that's no big deal. But here's the worst part. There's no citation. He doesn't tell you which sol this comes from. He doesn't tell you which where the citation link is, where you can find this image. And Alan has declared this to be fake. It may or may not be. I don't know. If this is real, and this is why I tell you to take this with a big handful of salt, I've asked Mr. Danielle for a citation link, but he has not been forthcoming. And it does indeed appear to be a regular Percy, a lot of Percy similarities there with the background. And I think it's really easy for us to kind of knee-jerk and call something fake right at the get-go. And like I say, this may well be fake. I'm going to dive into it more. I'm actually going to send this to Neville Thompson and see what he has to say about it. I haven't looked at any other videos on Mr. Danielle's YouTube channel, so I don't know what his deal is. But I do know that he's not keen on you finding what he's posting by posting a link. So again, take this with a handful of salt. If it's real, it's spectacular. If it's not, it's a piece of crap. And I'll say that. I'm going to include it in the video. And unless I get a real strong indication from Nev. Now, nothing against Joe White over at Art Alien, but Joe has pasted his share of things that are questionable. I don't mean that as a slam, just an observation and opinion from my side of the fence. But now Neville Thompson, he will know. So anyway, so we will find out whether it's real or not real before this goes up into the video. And we'll take it from there. That's all I can tell you. But this is the first time I've run across his channel. Now, I'm aware of the other channels that post obviously falsified stuff there, like Paranormal Crucible and Third Phase of Moon and a couple others I won't say because I don't want to offend people that I'm working with in the global community at the moment. And yeah, I will remove this image when I have in fact verified it to my own personal satisfaction that it is in fact fake. So let's move on. A little bit of controversy there. So we're in Percy 388, which will be in for the rest of these pictures. And we'll start out with some fairly simple ones that aren't all that mind-boggling. And inhabit Mars, yeah, you're correct. And Alan, I know you're right. And you know, I'm not so much worried about my reputation. I'm worried about not posting fake stuff. And you know, and I take what you guys say seriously. And there's probably a 90% chance I won't post it. Except as a cautionary tale in the upcoming video. But I want to check with Nev and Neil and see what they have to say about it. I'm sure they'll probably say the same thing. But Nev is a 9th degree black belt in image processing and in all things Mars. He's my go-to guy. If Nev doesn't know it, you don't need to know it yourself. So anyway, so there we are, circled in the yellow there. And as we move in, this is as close as we can get without going into a breakup. But I want you to notice the rectangular shape and then that knob on a stick hanging down over the top. And then at the bottom, it appears to be a circular structure made of those beads. So I would call this an artifact. There are enough non-fractal angles present to clearly call this an artifact. And Alan, I know you don't talk crap. But I need to do my own due diligence on it before I move ahead. Okay, so here's another one. This is one that I call Patrick. You'll find out why in just a minute. And Tony, you're right. That it is too good to be true. And usually if it is too good to be true, it is too good to be true. You know, so well, like I say, we'll find out. I'll find out over the next couple of days what we got. And anyway, let me zoom in on Patrick here, which is inside that blue square. And why am I calling it Patrick? That's why. I got tickled. It just reminded me of Patrick. And any of you who've raised kids have had to watch your share of SpongeBob SquarePants. And I thought Patrick fit right into the mix there. He was... it just really looks that way. And Mr. Jessica Roberts says there's got to be a way to hijack the signal. Well, there may be, but I think you have to have very specialized receiving equipment to take those data downloads and then put them into a usable form. Anyway, before we leave Patrick, I wanted to point these other anomalies out to you. Those are all blocks, each and every one of them. Rectilinear blocks. Even though that's we're up close and blurry, but I did that so you could see these blocks. There are blocks all over the place in Percy. Okay, and here is one I'm real proud of that I found in Percy 388. And again, I'll mention the fact that people say, why are the pictures so blurry? What's wrong with you? Can't you take a clear picture? Well, take a look at this in X3D. And what we're looking at is way off in the background. I'm thinking at least 200 yards, maybe further. Maybe half a click. It's way out there. So I made it as clear as I could, but take a look at this. Isn't that beautiful? That, my friends, is a step pyramid. And look at the bottom right edge. Look at each of those round things, whether those are openings or, doorways. I don't know. But as you let your eye wander around a little bit, you can see that there are other smaller pyramids, that it appears to be an entire complex. And I know that NASA sees this too, but they won't. I doubt they'll come off mission and run Percy over there. But, here would be a perfect time to use the Ingenuity helicopter, the drone, and send that over to this thing, and let's get some decent photos. Let's do an orbit of this thing from 10 feet up and far enough out to catch the whole thing. But and I know it ain't gonna happen. But that now makes 30 or 40 pyramids that we found at least on Mars. most of them just as clearly cut as this one. I find it interesting that this one resembles the Mayan step pyramids, like a Chichen Itza. Very similar. So, I'm back. And true to my word, we're just going through the images one time tonight. So now we're going to open it up because I want to have a little bit more interaction with you guys to Q&A. Ask Dave anything. And I will do my best to answer your questions. Hey, and if you don't have any questions, we'll just sign off and call it a night. It's a beautiful spring evening, at least where I am in the People's Republic. I'm hoping it's beautiful where you are too, and you'd probably like to go sit out on the patio and sip some Woodford Reserve and take a look at the sun go down and listen to the birds singing. I know that's what I'd do if I had a druther, but I don't really drink very much anymore. But if I do, that's either Knob Creek Special Edition or Woodford Reserve. Raymond says many years ago, a fellow employee casually began chatting and described seeing a huge triangular UFO overhead. Anything similar happened to you? I have not seen an overtly triangular UFO. I've seen UFOs on 5 occasions in my life, including one very close encounter. But the last one that I saw would have been in about 2018, 2017, right around in there. And I was sitting in the backyard of my sister-in-law with my nephew. And she lives in a wooded area, but there's a bit of sky open. It was nighttime. We were stoking the fire and talking. And my nephew said, "Hey, what's that?" and pointed up. And there was a 3 very bright and rather large, a yellow, a red, and a blue light in a triangular formation, but very close together, that was moving along at a good clip. It appeared to be at quite an altitude, although you can't know for sure. And while it was kind of zipping along, it made a right angle turn and disappeared from sight. It zipped up and disappeared. And we both exclaimed about it and thought, oh my gosh, that was a UFO. Well, here's the weird thing. I asked my nephew the next day when I saw him, I said, "What did you think of that UFO you saw last night?" And he looked at me genuinely puzzled and he said, "What UFO? What are you talking about?" I looked at him and said, "You know, the red, yellow, and blue one, the triangle, the one that made a 90-degree angle turn and disappeared?" And he looked at me genuinely puzzled. He says, "I have no idea what you're talking about." So anyway, what's going on there? What is that all about? Maybe it's a selective memory thing. So Amanda says, "That's what I'm doing here in Florida. Beautiful day, drinking my coffee. Enjoy life while you can. You are full of wisdom, dear lady." And that's what I do. I remember little niece of mine getting in trouble down in Alabama because she'd broken off an icicle and was sucking on it. And her mother came out and said, "You quit sucking on that icicle, you're going to get a sore throat." And she says, "Well, I'm just getting the juice out of it." And I kind of stuck with me. I thought, yeah, that's it. You need to get the juice out of each day. And that's what I try to do. I try to maintain my what the Japanese call your inner self of serenity and witness observation. I don't always succeed in maintaining that, of course. I'm a work in progress, but I sure do enjoy life more to the extent that I do it. Let's see what Alan has to say. He's hoping to get kidnapped by aliens. Get off this nut house planet before we're all vaporized. I don't think it'll come to that just yet, Alan. At least I hope not. I think that what's going to happen, if it happens, is a false flag event here on our soil, happening in the very near future, that will be blamed on Russia, even though Russia has nothing to do with it. And the current administration will ramp things up until there's a limited nuclear exchange in Europe. At which point I think China and Russia will wipe the map with us. They'll wipe us out. That's what I think. I hope it doesn't happen. I would love to be wrong. I would super love to be wrong about that. But that's kind of been bothering me in my spidey senses lately. Because, you know, both China and Russia have hypersonic missiles against which there is no defense. We don't have them yet. We have them in development. We don't have them deployed. We don't have them fielded. So they decide to use hypersonic nuclear-tipped cruise missiles on us. Game over. There's not a thing we can do about it. So Lord protect us. Let me see what else we came up with. Raymond says another employee at the same company told me she saw little people when she was a child. I guess I was perceived as a neutral listener. By the way, it was a manufacturing facility, not an insane asylum. And I think there are little people. I think they're here on Earth too. Not just aliens. I think there's an entire subspecies of small people here on Earth. Of course, ancient people have spoken of them for thousands of years. You know, the dwarves and the elves and the fairies. Trolls, different small trolls, not the big ones. And of course they discovered what they're calling the Hobbit race on one of the islands of Micronesia that were like 2 to 3 feet tall, fully grown. It's an entirely new species. So yeah, little people. There's that doesn't really stretch the imagination too far, as far as I say. Stephen Gurr says they can make you see whatever they want. And you know, I believe that that's true. They have the types of interfaces that can create a holographic reality in us. And one of the things that points to that are people who have abduction experiences and then report waking up in the examination room and seeing military personnel, American military personnel, working on them. But then when they later go under deep hypnosis, that camouflage masking is pulled aside and they see the typical alien grays and the mantids, the tall ones. Who knows? But I think it's certainly possible. And Renee says Russia is now playing a bit, and so see what is there about defense. Europe and Ukraine is also not completely fair. Exciting time. Boy, you're not kidding. It's an exciting time. And okay. Well, it looks like the questions are petering out unless I see one in the next 10 or 15 seconds. And rest assured, one and all, I'll check on that one smoking gun image and make sure I got it straight on that one. And yeah, I've noticed that too, Raymond, that it used to be mutual assured destruction. And now there's another generation come along that think that nuclear war is no big thing. I mean, what do they think it is? A fireworks show? And unfortunately, you're correct. I believe we've learned very little from history. What is it called? Mohenjo-daro? Is that it, in India? Where they dug down to remains 100,000 years ago that are not only vitrified, the rock is melted, but the human skeletons are still so highly radioactive that they had to wear protective gear to excavate them. So have we learned our lessons? I'm afraid not. Tony says, controversial one, Dave. I'm starting to think the moon landing is all a con. Been watching a channel that shows so much stuff. Kind of stuff makes a mockery of. What's your thoughts on it? Well, we did go to the moon. Okay, I'll just say that outright. The MRO and some of the other missions, Japan and Russia, clearly show the various moonlanders on the surface from the different missions. And did we fake some of the images? Yep, we sure did. I believe that Francis Ford Coppola was called in to do studio shots in case things went south, or in case they had things that they didn't want to show on camera, which is obviously true. They could cut away to the studio stuff. And so there were fake shots. For sure there were fake shots. But I believe we did, in fact, land on the moon. That said, they certainly haven't shown us everything that they found. One of the things I remember, I can't remember the name of it, but you remember when you're watching those moon videos from the surface and there would be a beep, like when they were almost changing a mic over or something. And that beep, if I recall correctly, was to indicate something that was coming into frame, to alert the sensors to cut the feed if in fact there was something non-fractal, ruins or something, showing up. And that's what all those beeps were. And every time it beeps, you would notice that something new would come into frame. So is that in fact what it was? I don't know. Let's see what some of this other stuff says. Oh, inhabit Mars. I think, they talked about Apollo 20 and that video, and that's been conclusively proven to be a fake, unfortunately. And Ian asks, have you seen anything interesting in images of the moon? Yeah, I sure have. My gosh. If you just look at any of John Lear's research, go to the Pegasus website, or go on YouTube. There are hundreds and thousands of images of machines and structures and roads and buildings and mining equipment and gas clouds and light and all manner of things. You stop and think, why did they never show us the moon in color? It was always this like real stark black and white, like everything was made out of plaster. And but that's not how it is at all. The moon is full of color. And there are a number, you can look these up online, there are a number of full color images of the moon taken by the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter and I think some of the Apollo missions when they were still far enough away to image the entire globe. And it's quite colorful. It's really quite pretty. It's not this dead gray and ash white lump of rock. It only makes sense. There are tons of minerals there, and we know the minerals have color here on Earth. So, who knows? Let's see. Renee says he experienced something in 208 running shifts. He started at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, woke up just at the moment of bang, sound barrier, but at the moment I thought I had been in an object and had more experiences. Well, you never know, Renee. That could well be. You know, there are any number of people who say, well, that's psychological, and there's a name for it, and all that. But you really don't know. You really don't know. I think that we're subject to a lot more probing and away time from this reality than we are aware of, and that especially that we allow into our conscious minds. So, something to think about, for sure. Oh, she said Jim Lovell was your CEO, Ramona? Wow. It was great to meet and discuss the topics. I guess so. What a privilege. What a privilege you had there. And I would have been tempted to ask him questions. Of course, he's still under classification lockdown. He can't talk about anything, and they do keep track of stuff like that. So he's not going to break his oath there. But you'll remember, maybe some of you will remember the video of the press conference with the Apollo astronauts, Apollo 11, when they returned. And they're sitting at the table, and they're looking seriously bummed and seriously negative. And they're looking down at the table, and they're frowning, and they're not looking at the camera, and it's clear that they're very uncomfortable. And I think these guys went through some real powerful paradigm shifting when they landed on the moon and saw not only the other races that are there, but the ancient structures and current equipment, things like that. I mean, you think back to that time, that would have been just absolutely soul-shattering for most people. And so they came back, and they are told in no uncertain terms by the government, you talk about this, your families will suffer, and then you will suffer. Do not do it. They had them sign on the dotted line. Those guys are good soldiers, good airmen. And they did what they said they would do. But they were not happy about it. And if any of you are any good at reading body language, see if you can find that video on YouTube. And tell me that you don't come away genuinely alarmed at how they're behaving. It ain't right. It ain't right at all. So I see that we've kind of run out of questions, and we're at that point anyway. You all have been great coming by here tonight. I hope you'll stop by, have a look at the episode when it goes up. It's always been kind of polished and candied up a little bit before it goes up onto YouTube. And I appreciate each and every one of you. Whether you're a proud weirdo first class or simply a proud weirdo, I appreciate each and every one of you. Love you. Y'all take care. This is your buddy Dave over at MarsX3D. Be well.